Hey everybody, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to create an AI workflow that automatically generates faceless videos, the kinds of which that are getting millions upon millions of views all throughout social media. I'm going to take you through every single one of these modules. I'm going to explain the logic behind it all, and I'm even going to break down how much each step costs. I think the cost is actually a really important part of this because any sort of AI workflow that involves video generation does carry a hefty price. So I think it's important to know where we can cut back on certain things and where we could also dive in and actually spend more money if we want to get a better product. So let's dive into it right away, and let me take you through a high-level overview of how this all works. So here's the general flow. First, we have a Google Sheet that has a list of all the different video ideas we have. We then take that video idea and we send it to Flux. Flux is an AI text-to-image generator, and this image is what creates the base of our video. We then take that image and we give it to Kling. Kling takes the image that we've created and it then edits it to create a video, right? So we're essentially giving the video the foundation that we want to work out of. Once we've created the videos, we now need some sort of audio soundtrack, and for that, we use 11 Labs. We give it a basic description of what we kind of want the feel of our video to be, and from there, it generates background music. Lastly, we take all those video scenes, we take captions we've created with ChatGPT, and that background music we created in 11 Labs, and we splice it all together automatically through Creatomate before dumping it back in to our Google Sheets to do with what we wish. And that flow is what you see here, right? We kind of generate our scenes and our ideas over here on the left in the green. We then create all of our prompts, right? We have an image prompt, we have a caption prompt, and we have a video prompt. For the images, we send that prompt to Flux where it creates our image. We then take that image and we send it down here to Kling, right? Kling then takes a little bit of time to create those videos. We then send that video information down here to 11 Labs, which creates the background music. We then send all of that, the videos, the captions, the audio, all over here to Creatomate where it's then rendered and then it's updated into our Google Sheet. So idea, image, video, audio, combine it, and that's the workflow. So there's a lot of moving parts. We're going to break it all down step by step. And again, over here, I also will have a breakdown of how much we're spending on each of these steps. And I'll also go into what our options are if you actually want a higher quality video. But first, let me show you a quick demo video that highlights what this can create using the cheapest versions of everything available to us. So what you saw there was the images that had been turned into videos along with the captions and some subtle background music that we had created using 11 Labs. Now, remember, what you saw there isn't going to be on the same level as what you're seeing getting millions and millions of views on, TikTok and Instagram and all that. But I'll show you in this lesson how you can get it to that level, what they're doing, and what changes you need to make. Now, everything you see here, and when you use this template, is going to be with, like I mentioned, the cheapest versions. And I think that's for the best. That way you can kind of get the reps in, edit what you need to edit before you're finding like, hey, I know how I want to make this video or that video. Now let's kind of like turn the knobs on the images and the videos to get something that's really, really good, or even do some of my own post-processing editing. But now let's go into each module. Now you've kind of seen what we can create, and I'll show you how it's all working behind the scenes. So I just wanted to pause here real quick and say, if you're looking for the template for this particular build, you can find it inside my Skool community. I have a link to that below, and you can find that lesson and others like it inside the classroom, which also have templates. So if you're looking for a place to start and you're brand new to this whole AI space, you're not technical, I suggest checking this out. All right, so first step, what's happening here? When this workflow starts, it's pulling information from Google Sheets. And what information is it pulling? Well, it's this, right? We just have a very simple sheet. I have a template for this in the Skool, and you'll see it's broken down by ID, idea, style, number of scenes, status, and video link. So what do you need to fill out as the user? Well, you need to fill out the idea. Now we're just using the idea of space. You can get much more specific than that. And you can also fill out, the style and the number of scenes. So if you don't put anything for style, it's going to default to hyperrealism. And if you don't put anything for number of scenes, it's going to default to 3. Each scene is a 5-second video. So, 4 scenes would be 20 seconds, etc. Now for the status, it's going to start on pending, and this is how our automation knows which row to go after, right? So if this had been set to complete, then it wouldn't look at space. It would look, hey, if we had dogs here, it would go to number 2 and start looking at dogs. And then the video link is what's going to be populated once the video has been created. And then you can go to that link, download it, and do what you wish from that point. So this is what the module looks like. Like I said, we're looking at the Faceless sheet document, sheet 1. We're filtering by the status of pending, and we're only returning that first matching row, right? I just wanted to do the videos and the scenes for that video. I don't want it to like pull everything all at once. Now from there, it gets sent to this LLM chain generate scenes, right? So we have the idea, but from that idea, right, we need to have some sort of outline of what we want each scene to be. And so that's what we have going on here. Remember, we started with like space, and so it gave us these 3 scene concepts. The first one being that gas giant, second one being a nebula cloud, and the third one being some icy alien planet. And you kind of saw that in the video demo. And that's what's spelled out in this system message, right? It's just essentially saying, hey, you're an expert in creating, these scene concepts. I'm going to give you an idea, and I want you to spit out as many scenes as I give you surrounding that idea, right? So if we did something like ancient Rome, I would want one scene about, the view of Rome from Palatine Hill, another one of the Pantheon, and then another one of the Colosseum. So that's what's going on here in this prompt. And this is important because it's from those scenes that we are going to then generate our image prompts, our captions, and our videos, right? I can't just make videos from the idea of space. I need a little bit more to go off of that. So from the idea generation, from the scene generation portion, we now move into prompt generation, and there's 3 different prompts we need to create, right? We need one for the images, one for the videos, and then one for the captions. So we'll dive in on the simplest one first, and that's the captions. And so the captions are that text you're going to see up top. In this case, it was massive, gas giant illustration, colorful stellar nurseries, and then frozen world under Aurora. And that's what's happening in the system prompt. It's going to say, hey, I'm going to give you the initial idea video, which is, in this case, it's going to pull from the Google Sheets and would be something like space. And then we just wanted to create short captions that won't overload the screen in relation to the video theme. So it knows what's coming in there is like majestic gas giant, all that stuff, and then it's going to create the captions based on that. And eventually, that'll come back in the flow when we get toward the render portion, but we get those kind of captions figured out right away. And then the next ones, the more important ones, are going to be our image prompt and the video prompts. And I would argue that the image prompt is the one that is the most important, the one you need to spend the most time on tinkering to get what you want, right? Because these videos, they're just going to be animating the image, right? It all starts from the image. So this is super, super important. So let's kind of take a look at this, right? We're going to give it the overall theme, which is that original idea. We're then going to give it the scene, and we're going to give it the style, right? So it's going to get fed this idea, it's going to get fed the style, and then it's going to get fed these scenes. And by combining those 3 things, the overarching theme, the description of the scene, and the overall style, it's then going to generate a text to image prompt. So for that first one you saw that looked like Jupiter, essentially, this is what it gave us, okay? And so feel free to come in here and play around with the prompt to get it to what you want. And I will say, when it comes to all of these prompts, I built this template to be kind of topic agnostic. That way it's not, hey, these are specifically prompts for, POV videos. So these are specifically prompts for, like, I'm sure you've seen ones as like, these are countries with animals, right? Like, this is pretty general for each of these. So if you have specific videos in mind, make sure you come into these and kind of like get the scope tighter. So now that we got the image prompt, next we want the video prompt. So let's kind of take a look at what we did here. So what happened here is we feed it 2 things. We feed it the overarching video idea, which in this case would be space. I have some pin data. That's why you're seeing it come up in red. But as you do this and unpin it, it won't show up as red. So this would say like space, right? And then I give it the prompt for the actual image, right? So it knows what the video is about. It knows what sort of prompt I'm going to be giving Flux. And then we're saying, hey, I want you to come up with a prompt that adds some sort of like dynamism to the scene, right? Whether that's zooming in, like I don't want something as simple as just like zooming in. And we talk about that here, right? I want you to give it some sort of motion. So we go beyond just like a very, very basic video that's just like a slow zoom. So that's what's happening here. And again, feel free to play with this prompt depending on what sorts of videos you're trying to create. End of note down here, I'm just using stuff like 4.1 nano for these prompts because if you haven't used 4.1 nano, it's pretty new. It's super cheap, super fast, and perfect when you're just doing stuff like text with your LLM. So there we go. We've now figured out what we want our videos to be about. We have general scene concepts, and now we've gotten through the hardest part, which is like, or the most important part, which is what do we want the prompts to be for the images, the videos, and the captions. And so now we can move to actually generating these things, first with the image, then with the video, and then with the audio. So let's take a look at the image generation. Now for image generation, we're going to be using Flux, and for video, we'll be using Kling, but we're not going to be using the APIs for these systems directly. We're going to be using Pi API. So Pi API is actually a pretty cool website. They have a bunch of different tools, just like we mentioned, like Kling and Flux, but it's like a central hub that allows us to, connect an API to these different services that may not actually have a pay-as-you-go API. Kling is one of those. There is an API you can pay for, but you have to have an account, and to have an account with them costs a ton of money. And this is a cheaper workaround. Think of it as, like Open Router for, different LLMs. So you need to go to piapi.ai, create an account, and I think they give you like a couple bucks to start, so you shouldn't have to put any money in, but you will eventually need some sort of billing. And so to do that, you'll eventually come down to settings here on the left. You'll go to API keys, and this is where you're going to create your API key. Just hit create new, and that's what you'll be using inside of here. So if I open this up, what you need to fill out as a user is this X API key. So this is the API key, and this is where you get it from. So you'll go to create new key, you'll hit copy, and then you'll put it into there. Now, if you want more information about these particular APIs, you just need to go over here and go to them. So like Flux, right? It'll give you kind of an overview of how it works, the different models that are available, the pricing. So in this case, we're using Flux.1 dev, which is about 1.5 cents per run. They also have a playground, so you can actually mess with different prompts, play around with the settings to see, kind of what a image that you're trying to create would look like. So that's Pi API, and that's how we get the API key. And beyond that, this will already be filled out for you via the template. And then for the body, all we're doing is we're taking the image prompt that we created before and dragging it into here. So for image prompt, for example, I'm just taking this content and we're dragging it into here where it says prompt. That's what's happening. And then once we do that, it's sending a request to Pi API, which is in sending a request to Flux to create that image. And we also have a wait module here because it takes a little time for that image to be created. This right now is set to 3 minutes. Honestly, that's very conservative. It usually takes like a minute tops, but you'll have it wait for a few minutes. And then we have another module where we actually then grab that image URL. So when this runs, it goes and it looks for the image URL, and you'll see it right here. So you can just copy, paste this into your browser, and you can see the actual image that was created. And it will do this for every single scene, right? You'll see this says 3 items right there. So it's going to do all 3 images, all 3 prompts automatically. And now when we look at video generation, it's pretty much the same exact logic, right? We're now sending that image to Kling via Pi API. It does it automatically for all the images. We wait for it to generate, and then we pull the video. So if we look at the actual module itself, same deal as before. We're going to use that same API key we grabbed from Pi API and dump it in here. And then when we look at the prompt we're sending it, right, we have a couple of different things we can play around with, like the mode and stuff like the scale and pan and tilt. Like you can play around with all this. But what's happening here? Well, the prompt is being pulled, right? We're mapping it from the video prompt. So right here, this is where this goes. And then the other thing we're doing is the image URL. So we're mapping the image URL from this module to this module. That way it automatically knows, hey, that's the image I'm supposed to grab. Hey, that's the prompt I'm supposed to use. Okay, now it's time to render the videos. Now I think this is a good time to talk about the price and what our options look like. So as I talked about before, each image we generate via Flux is 1.5 cents. And here's where you start to see the video generation price start to kind of creep up. So the videos you're seeing are with the weakest and least expensive model. That is Kling 1.5, and it's costing us 26 cents per video, which means for just a 15-second video, right, 75 cents. And you start to think about it, okay, I'm gonna have to test a bunch of stuff, and it might take me a while to get what I want. So you can see very quickly, you just run 4 videos, that just cost you $1. How many videos will it take for you to get it to where you need to be? Who knows? But this is why you want to play around with these lower quality models and really fine tune it to get it where you want. And similar to Flux, you can come in here inside Pi API, go to the Kling section here on the left, and you can start doing, stuff in the playground where you play around with prompts, negative prompts, durations, ratios, creativity, pro mode, all this stuff. And you can also see kind of what each one gives you and what the price is. So for their best model, like those really good videos that you're seeing get a bunch of views, you're looking at almost $1 per 5-second video, right? Not cheap, but if you're going for the best you can get, that's what you're going to want to use. And same thing for the image models. If you want the best you can get, upgrade your Flux model or upgrade to Midjourney. And if you're saying like, hey, Chase, I want to upgrade to like Kling 2.0, how would I do that? Where would that happen? You would come down here and it would be in the body, right? And you would add an input. You would add like version. And you would put like 2.0. That's what it would look like. And where did I find that information? If you come back to Pi API and you go to Run API, it'll give you a bunch of information about how the API is working and what the prompts are. And if that's all way too confusing and this looks like a bunch of nonsense, you know what we do? We copy paste all this, we dump it into something like ChatGPT and we say, hey, I need some help with this. What do I need my, kind of like output, my JSON format to look like to get this thing? So that's how that works. That's how you can play around with it. And that's kind of what we're looking at when it comes to the price differences. So we send in the image. This is a 10-minute wait time. Again, is it conservative? Yes, sometimes it just takes 6-7 minutes, but better to be conservative on the wait times. That way you don't have some like weird stuff where the workflow kind of just seizes up when it's asking for videos that don't exist yet. So it does that, then it's going to go to get video. In similar situation to like when we got the image, what are we looking for? We're looking for a video URL, right? So here's one of them. And you can test it out by just copy pasting it into your browser. And here's what we get for the Nebula stuff, right? Cool, no sound though, no caption yet. All right, so now we've generated our images, we've turned them into videos. Now we want to get some sort of audio. How do we do that? Well, we are going to use 11labs. So 11labs.io is a really cool like AI web app that allows us to do all sorts of stuff with voice, like text to voice, give it prompts, all sorts of stuff. What we need though is we need an API key. So for 11labs, again, start talking about pricing, you are going to need to use the starter pack. Now there is a free trial, but I will say when you use the free trial APIs and some sort of automation that's running for any amount of time, it doesn't really like that. And sometimes it will like flag your account for rate limiting and shut it off. So maybe it will work for you. I've had the opposite experience. And so if you want to be sure, you can do the starter for $5 a month, which is all you need. And once you do that, you would just go to API keys, and then create an API key, right? From there, you would copy it. You'd come back into here and you would dump that API key right down here under XI API key. Now for the important part, the prompt, right? So we're actually using a pretty simple prompt for this. We're just telling it to generate a looping soundtrack for the atmosphere of idea, right? In this case, looping ambient soundtrack evoking the atmosphere of space, right? Very simple. Again, if you have something much more concrete in mind, this is where you would change the system prompt. The nice thing about 11labs is able to create that really fast. We then upload the MP3 from 11labs to Google Drive. And then we also need to update access for this file so that we can eventually use it here with Creatomate. Now, let's review where we're at now in the chain, right? We've done all our prompts, we've generated the images, we generated the video, and generated the audio. We essentially have all the disparate parts that we want for our video. We now just need to mash them all together and edit it. So what I'm going to show you now is how we can send it to Creatomate. But again, let's talk about cost. Creatomate, great tool. I can take these disparate parts and have it all automatically edited. However, you're going to be paying at minimum $50 a month. So $50 a month, Creatomate actually does give you a pretty good amount of editing, but there isn't really a lower tier that makes sense for us. So this is where you need to start thinking about, okay, where can I start to cut costs? And frankly, I think while I will show you how to render it, I think this is a good place where you might want to think, hey, what if I just have everything created in disparate parts and I edit it myself, right? I think that's an easy route to go down. And with $50 a month of savings, you can definitely start to justify now, hey, let's go up to Kling 2.0 instead of 1.5. Let's go from Flux Dev to Flux Pro. And I think this is where the automated editing is like a nice to have versus like, this is what makes the video, right? Because what really makes the video? What makes the video is a really good image and a really good like video creation piece. It isn't the editing, right? And in fact, you're kind of limited into what you can do with the editing, as you'll see. I mean, it does a lot considering it's automated, but again, were you making money on these things? Are these videos getting millions of views because they were automatically edited in Creatomate? Or are they getting millions of views because they had a beautiful image that they then, turned the video creation power up to 11 and got that final product? So things to think about. But for the sake of this lesson, I'm going to go into Creatomate, where to sign up, how to use it, etc. So what you see here with this aggregate and the merge and eventually this list elements is this is just us playing around with the data so we can get to a point where we have something that looks like this, like a nice output in one item that gives us our scene titles, our video URLs, and the sound URLs. And in this case, I just have it create one 5-second URL because I find that just having the looping 5-second URL, 5-second audio tends to be a bit better than trying to do a long drawn out one or something along those lines. So that's how I approach it, but you can obviously edit that as you wish. So let's talk about Creatomate, right? We get all those elements and then we send it here. And now you'll want to go to Creatomate, which is creatomate.com. And this is what it looks like. Again, we got some pricing stuff. It does have a free trial for 2 weeks. So go ahead and do that. And then once you're inside there, I'll show you how we can create our video template. This is what you're going to see inside Creatomate. And the first thing we need is our API key. To get that, click the 3 buttons up top, go to project settings, and then you're going to see this thing that says API key. Click to reveal, copy that, go back into n8n, and inside this render video area, you're going to then paste your API key in here. Now remember, you will need this value that says bear, capitalize the B, space, API key. Okay, so now we need to create a video template. So you can go to templates, new, start from scratch, 916, create template. And then it's just going to look blank like this. But we want the template that you saw there on the screen for a second. And for that, we need to import some code. Now, you can get this code from the Skool and you can just copy paste it in and it's going to look like this. And now what we have is a template that includes text, video, and audio, just like we've been created for 3 different scenes, right? And so what's now going to happen is we are going to take the code for this template, put it back into n8n, and when we run that automation, it's going to automatically know like, hey, the text goes here, the video goes in this slot, and I'm going to put some audio behind it. And so to do that, you're going to come up here to the right where it says use template. You're going to click that. You're going to go to API integration. And you see this thing where it says template ID. You're going to copy that. You're then going to go back into the render visual module, open this up, and then paste the ID, right? And then you're all set. Now, you might be thinking right away, well, Chase, what if I don't want 3 audio sources? What if I wanted a 10-scene video? How would I do that? How would I be able to change that? Well, here's what I would do. You're going to go back to this template, right? You're going to open up that source code. You're going to copy paste that, and you're going to go to something like Gemini ChatGPT, paste the code and be like, hey, I was using this for Creatomate. It was for 3 scenes. I want the same kind of like form and style, but I now want it for 10 scenes. Can you give me that code? It's going to give you the code back, and you're just going to put it in here. That would then give you, 10 scenes of this. The next step would be coming in here, right? And in this prompt, just adding more sources. So I have video source 3. If I wanted to do 4, I'd come in here and I would change that to video source 4, right? And video URL 3, and etc. That's how you would kind of edit this format. So once it does that, it's going to then take everything we gave it, right? Captions, video, music, just automatically splice it all together. And then it's going to dump it into our Google Sheet. So now that we're back in our Google Sheet, it's now populated it with the video link. When we run it for real, it'll switch this also to complete. And from there, you can go to the link, download it, and do whatever you want to do with it. So that is how this whole thing works. So again, there's a lot of steps going on here. We're calling a bunch of different APIs. We have like 4 different prompt modules. So this automation is kind of a beast, and there's a lot of stuff going on here, but I hope this video is able to kind of show you from beginning to end how all these modules are working, what you need to edit, and then also how you can change things and make things better. Like I said, I kind of dive into this in potential enhancements over here. The first one being tighter scope, right? This template I have right here is pretty, idea agnostic. And if you have a specific niche of videos you're trying to create, you need to go in here into the prompts and start editing them appropriately. Second thing to make this better is, do you want some sort of automatic posting to socials, right? That's something you could also add on the back end of this, whether that's YouTube or something like Instagram. And then lastly, hey, do we want to edit this automatically, or do we want to save $50 a month and actually start using better image sources, using better video generation, right? That's something you're going to have to decide. I also had a note here about GPT. I know over the last couple of weeks, OpenAI came up with like an amazing, image generation source, but unfortunately there's no API for that yet. And I think that's going to change very, very soon, which should be super exciting because now you can create like really cool images. And once that happens and you're using this template, just remember nothing changes too much. You're just going to be changing this one and this one to something that's now calling OpenAPI and then getting the image from the same place. So again, hope this kind of made sense to you. If it doesn't, leave a note in the comments and I'll see you around.